Of course, that would go off immediately. Let me see something. Peace. I put up a video yesterday. When I went back and looked at it, I realized y'all couldn't really hear me. Hope you're having a good Saturday. How y'all doing? So I shared yesterday about, I shared this on this channel before, but I shared it in my pics in the community, and I shared it in a video that I shared. Peace. About the experience that I had when I was 14 and being abducted. And 14 was a really trying year, even before being abducted. It was the year that my mom had like her total breakdown and became very abusive in our home, to the point where she had already injured me severely as a child. Like when I was 4, I was getting a spanking that turned into a beating, that turned into anger, and the belt buckle slipped from her hand and it ripped this eyeball out, causing me to be blind in my eye. And we were placed back in her home after a year, and the abuse continued until off and on at different rates, causing my brother's father to come get him and remove him from the home, because it was his child. We weren't his children, and he wanted to safeguard his legacy, so he came and got him. And so it left me and my sister to be there. And the incident that really got us out of her house finally was, she stabbed my sister in the head with those giant umbrellas. She stabbed her in the head with the point of that. So we had 14 was a very traumatic year anyway, and I found my sister in a pool of blood. I had to drag her out the house, call the police, like insanity, And so we were officially put in the foster care system after having been in and out of the system for a while. And during that time, I had gotten a summer job. I had graduated from 9th grade. I was on my way to Duke Ellington High School. Okay, Pooh. I was on my way to Duke Ellington. I played 3 instruments. I played flute, saxophone, and clarinet, and ran track. I had scholarships. My life was lined up in a way, even though I had like a crazy childhood, home life. I was a straight A student. My life was lined up in a way that I was going in a certain direction. And I got in a summer job from Marion Barry, who is DC's mayor. DC's mayor. And in that summer job, I was learning ballet, tap, and jazz. And I was very excited because I'd never been exposed to anything like that. Because I came from the east of the river. If you don't know DC, Southeast is the poorest quadrant of DC. And lots of things didn't make it over there that made it in other places. So, and I met my abductor during my travels back and forth to work. So he became like a safe in my head. I had so much trauma. I couldn't tell what was a safe person and what was a dangerous person, because my home life was so filled with trauma. My signals were mixed up. And this is why I'm such a big proponent of not beating your children, or not hitting your children, or not screaming at your children, or abusing your children in any way, because it sends them mixed signals about what's safe in the world. If they can't if you're not a safe space, if you don't show them what safety is, and they perceive you as dangerous, then when they leave out into the world, they have a hard time perceiving what is unsafe. And I had a terrible time perceiving that. Terrible. I had no, like my mother used to say, you're so fucking smart at books, but you're stupid at the world. I really was, but it was really her fault because I didn't have that foundation you need in order to trust somebody to grow. Like you have to, in order to grow properly, you need a foundation. And so this incident happened, peace, and so I was abducted by this person who was familiar to me because they were on the pathway to me going back and forth to work. So I totally did not see it coming. You know, he pulled the candy in the truck type thing, like, oh, I got something I want to show you in my house. And went in, didn't get to exit for 8 months. For a long time, I blamed myself because I thought, damn, you should have been smarter than that. You should have knew better. You should have seen, but I really didn't. He really looked like a nice person. But fast forward to why I share my healing process. When I was a teenager, after all of this happened to me, it's like when I re-entered my life after that abduction, my brain was scrambled. Like everything, like before I was so smart, I could just go to school and do anything. Like I would just get straight A's. I didn't have to listen to my teacher. I would just know. Like I just knew everything. But when I went back to high school, it was like I couldn't think. It was like I was under such a fog. I couldn't play any of the instruments I used to play. I couldn't play flute. I couldn't play anything. And I played instruments for like 7 years. I couldn't play instruments. Like I couldn't run track because he'd broken 3 of my ribs while I was abducted. So that was also very frustrating. I just, I lost everything that I had before that incident. But then I got into a group for young women who had similar issues, were, trafficked or run away and things like that. And I actually met one of his another young lady he abducted in the group. And this was a normal person, normal, regular black dude you see on the street every day. You wouldn't think this person would do something like this to children. But he did. This is what he did. This is who he was. And so it's like, you can't say, I'm saying that to say, you can't say that abusers look like this or that rapists look like this or whatever. He looked like every man I've ever seen in my life in my community. I'm sorry, I need to check on this girl's stuff. So when I got into this group and I saw all these other young women who had experienced the same, I'm sorry, I'm crying, but oh yeah, I'd experienced the same thing that I experienced, and I realized that I wasn't by myself, that this was abnormal, that and it was all black girls like me. There was no other girl, and this is similar stories. They got in a car they shouldn't have got in, went someplace they shouldn't have went, walked down the street by themselves they shouldn't have walked down. And they all came from similar homes like mine, like, where their parent was abusive or on drugs or just neglectful in a way that left like no protection around them. And I'm not saying that's the only way that happens, because in my work, I've met other young ladies who had what I would think was great family support from my childhood lens, but was not good family support for them because it didn't stop them from ending up being trafficked or prostituted or whatever. So when I met these group of young ladies and I realized that I wasn't alone, that this was a normal occurrence in our in our community. I decided that I would, do something about it. And so I started doing work, peer education work as a teenager, 16. I got my first job doing peer education for other kids about sexual health and signs that something is dangerous, just teaching other kids about behavior and boundaries and stuff like that. And it was a lot, it was intense. And that's where most of my time was spent. I worked that job until I was 21, and I went away to college. Um, yeah, I was talking about how I got abducted and why I share my healing process because of that um, event, and that I, was in a support group of other young women who had been trafficked and abducted and things like that. And so I started doing that work and going out to DC area schools and programs and talking to young people like me, giving them a face like this could happen to you. This is how life is. Like if you're not aware, these are some signs of things XYZ. And it made me feel good. It made me feel like I was making a change, but at the same time, while I was going to therapy and everything, it was becoming my life. It was taking over my life. It was like now I was this victim of this sick, sadistic situation. And it was like I couldn't get out of it. And I was like, when I turned 21, I was like, I was very depressed. One, and I honestly didn't think I would live for a very long time because it just was so sad. And so I was like, I gotta do something else because this is exhausting. It's like I never got to heal. And then I thought I was doing something to heal it by being proactive, but it really just made it worse. Like while I was like helping my community, I was like, I had to keep retelling my story over and over and over and over again. So it was like it was never healing. So I stopped when I was 21. I went and I finished school and I went and got a regular job. And, I put that away because I didn't want to be on a poster. You know, I didn't want that to define me. But it did for a long time. It did define me because I couldn't escape it. When I would get in relationships, if somebody do something weird or move in a certain way, I would be instantly back. He kept me in a basement. I would be instantly back in that basement, like trying to figure out how to get out. And it became quite obvious that I couldn't have normal relationships with people. So I did it. I tried, but I was very, yeah, I don't know why I did that. It just like cut me off. Y'all, and I'm not trying to make y'all sad, but I'm a lot better now. But it's just still like a lot of feelings there around the situation. And so, I had a lot of shame around my body because of what happened to me, and having to share that every time you get in a relationship, having to share with people, that you had this thing happen to you, and, certain things you don't like, and things like that, right? And you're trying to be normal and cool or whatever, but I was never normal after that. I was never like a regular person after that. So I couldn't act like, like whatever. So I did it. I stopped engaging with men on a certain level because I realized that younger men, didn't have the capability to deal with what I was managing. And they were there for what they were there for. They wanted to have fun, sex-filled relationships that I wasn't interested in. Cause no. So I went on with my life and I decided to, become an eye doctor because I had this eye issue from my childhood, and I became interested in eyes because I thought maybe one day I'll get an eye transplant or some shit like that. But I didn't, because I was like, this was a defining moment in my life, and to have surgery and replace, to change it for real would be like changing a huge part of me, like, so I didn't want to change it. And also, it's scary to just voluntarily do surgery for aesthetic reasons, and I just really wasn't, pressed. I did have a couple of surgeries to have my eye straightened after that incident, because it was literally turned, like the muscle was so loose after the incident. The incident is my mom ripped my eyeball out with a belt buckle when I was a kid. And it was so turned this way that, like how people have those lazy eyes and they just go off to, on its own or whatever. So it was over there doing its own thing. So then that was the other thing. I had this deformity in people's eyes that I had to manage. So I did have it straightened, because it was very, frustrating and annoying to all constantly be asked, for people to be asked, who are you looking at? What are you talking about? And it's just like, come on, guys, just don't be childish. But people can be. So I started doing my own thing, got into the eye field, was minding my business, had a great job, was going to school, became a licensed optician, was on my way to becoming an ophthalmologist, because I was like, okay, let's do this eyeglass thing because eye doctors make that guap. And I was like, yes, I want a comfortable life. And my counselor that was my counselor, yeah, people are weird. My counselor that was my counselor when I was a kid called me and was like, hey, man, you need to come back over here. We have a lot of young people out here who need your help, and could use your advice and use your support. We have a job opening. Come over here and see what's going on or whatever. And I was like, how much y'all paying? And he was like, $23,000. I'm at my job making $60,000 at 22. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Tell the children I said, I'm sorry. I cannot go and relieve myself of all this beauty to help people. I'll donate. That's where I was at that time of my life. And so I was, doing that and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, if I wanted to do the eye doctor school or whatever. And he just kept calling me like every 3 months and was like, yo, this is, you really need to come over here. It's getting out of hand. Kids are experiencing insane stuff. You have so much information. We train you so well. You're so good at what you do, that. Just landed on thick or whatever. And I was like, I let him do that for about 2 years because I was like, But then I was working in a very stressful, demanding space, and I thought, oh, well, it would be nice, to give back to my community or whatever. So I called him and I said, how much you say that job pay again? He said, we went up $29,000 from 23. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so horrible. How do y'all pay people this? So I was like, okay, I made a plan. I had to get rid of, good morning. I had to get rid of everything that I owned. Like, I couldn't keep anything. I had to downsize my life to less than half of what I had in order to do this job. I couldn't keep my car. I had to move in with a roommate. I had to change my whole life around because I couldn't, maintain the life that I was living on $29,000. So I did. I changed my whole life around and I went into that field, and I stayed there for 20 years. And I went to communities, moved up through the ranks, through different organizations, and managed projects and all types of things um, in the communities for Black children, Black youth, Black women, Black men. But mostly the focus was on Black children. My focus was on Black children and Black women. Mainly because a lot of the times when we would have stuff for Black men, they would not show up. They just wouldn't come out. We tried to center, well, if they were under 21, they would come out. But if they were over 21, over 25, they really wouldn't attend a lot of the events that we were, they would send their girlfriends or whatever, like we did like HIV testing or whatever. They'd be like, oh, she get tested. If she's good, I'm good. And I'm like, that's not how that works, but okay, you know? And so I did that for 20 years. I stayed in the community. I did program after program after program after program, from organization to organization, switching organizations, hoping that it would get better, that, you know, that the organizations would get that the community needed this type of commitment, especially in Southeast, where I grew up, which was still very impoverished and lower income because of gentrification and all of the things that were happening in DC. And none of the organizations that I worked for, most of them were owned by white people. That was the biggest red flag. But most of the organizations that I worked for just couldn't get this community model down in a way that I was satisfied. And I felt like we went into the communities, we provided XYZ services in the amount of time that the CDC specified that we could be there. And then we were leaving these people to try to maintain these activities and behaviors that we taught them in a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year span without any support. And it just made me very angry because I felt like we were actually disabling people more than enabling people. And that's the community work, the community organization, the nonprofit organization model that I really have a distaste for. Is, you know, you go in and you bring in program, and then when the people get so dependent on the program that they don't know how to create anything outside the program. You might get the 1 or 2 people that rise and get it, like it sinks in. Okay, this is how you move. This is what you do. This is now that I have this certificate, or now that I have this knowledge, or now that I've gotten this job. Because, you know, we would find people who I would do that. I always hired from the community. Like, I would take the kids, like, oh, you're good, you get this knowledge, you could be a peer educator. Oh, you get this, I need somebody in my testing van, XYZ, you know what I mean? Because I felt like that was the purpose, right? You go in the community, you find the general stars of the community, and you help them bring the information and access back to the community and help them broaden the information in the community and get other people to rise, right? So that they can not just lead the community, but make the community better. But it felt like a pipe dream, honestly. And on my 19th year, I got pregnant with this one. And I planned on going back after I had her. And literally the week before I was supposed to go back, I was like, I cannot come back in that job. I cannot do it. I will not do it. So I started my own consulting organization and started consulting to organizations that needed support like mine, for women, children, and doing that work on, you know, while I could be home with my baby. And the main reason why I do what I do is because that support group that I was in when I was 14, 15 showed me that these problems are so pervasive, and healing doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, we think like that if you're by yourself, you're going to be able to manage all of this emotions, all of this energy, all of this stuff that's going on and that has happened to you. But it's very hard to process when you're on your own. And I do a lot of processing on my own, but I call my friends. I have very good friends. I have very good friend circle that I've had for more than 15 years. And I call my friends and I process with them. They know my story. They know my life. Like, you know what I mean? I have people around me who know every minute detail of my story. So this is not me telling my story the first time on YouTube or anything like that. This is, something I do. You know what I mean? But having people to process with is important. Having the ability to see that you're not alone in something happening. Being, especially the cancer diagnosis at such a young age was hugely, like, first I'm gonna die, then I'm not gonna die, then I can't have children. That was the biggest hump, right? Because I wanted to have children because I wanted to prove, and this was my own ego, I will admit. I wanted to prove that the women in my family had enough love in them to provide for children. Not like to provide a safe space for children. Because the 3 generations before me had literally been so marred by, yeah, the previous generations in my family had not been able to take care of their children. They had several issues with keeping their children in the home and all of that. Yeah, I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And, the first doctor that I met, she was like, well, just give you a hysterectomy. And that just sounded insane to me. I'm like 17. What are you talking about? I'm not having a hysterectomy. What do you want to look at, Pooh? But after years and years of treatments and things like that, I met a doctor when I was about 27. Okay. Which one, Marley?
Dark.
This one?
Dark.
I met a doctor when I was about 27 after having several invasive procedures and things like that. And she told me, I've seen this in other women, black women before. She was like, if you trust this one, she said, if you trust me, it's going to be okay. I'm trying to find something on her. Which one? Point to it. Point to it, babe. Point to it, babe. You gotta point to it, babe. Okay. Yeah. So my daughter is like high end on the spectrum. So we do a lot of pointing around here. She talks when she wants to. She can talk. But so she told me, I'm talking about the cancer diagnosis. She told me, I've seen this in a lot of black women. It can get very aggressive, but she was like, I'm aggressive. And you're right at where I can help you and get this out of you. She's like, because what I know is you don't have to have a hysterectomy. And she was like, if you trust me, she was like, it's going to be a lot. I'm not going to lie. But if you stick with me through this process, then you will come out you will not have cancer when we're done. You will be fine and you will be able to have children. And she said it with such conviction. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed about it. And I said, I'm going to trust her. I'm going to let her do what she do. And it was 9 invasive, terrible surgeries, biopsies, and all types of things over about 6 years. And when I turned 32, She called me. I had been no cancer for a year. She said, "You are good." She's like, literally, this is the point when we say hallelujah. And I was like, are you kidding me? She was like, go have a baby. And I was like, gotta get a man first, I guess. I gotta get married first, because I was still stuck in, you gotta have married to have kids. I still had a lot of indoctrination in me around church and things of that sort. So, and at the time I was a practicing Muslim. I took my Shahada because one of my friends had took her Shahada, and she looked so peaceful. And I hadn't had a lot of peace in my life. So I was like, girl, I need what you want, so I'm going to go. And then I literally did. I literally started practicing Islam. And I enjoyed a lot of the practice of Islam, especially the prayer 5 times a day. I saw the benefits of covering, especially wrapping your hair and keeping energy away from your crown, which, now I definitely know that is a thing. That's why I used to bald my head all the time. That's why I try to grow locks instead of cutting my hair off, because I love a cut of hair off. I don't really like to do hair, honestly. That's why my locks are almost never done, because I just don't believe that you gotta be doing your hair all the time. I just think that's frivolous. And yeah, I just didn't grow up in a house where women did their hair all the time. Like, my grandma wore plaits and stuff like that. So this is how I am. Very simple, And so I did that, and I was in a program that was a healing program where we did all this healing work, and I was doing all this internal healing work, pulling all these stories out of me. And it was like a program, and mostly Black people. And it was called Ascend Spiritual Flight Academy. It doesn't exist anymore. It was here in the DC, Maryland area, run by shaman master coach Ron Davis, who is no longer with us. That's why it no longer exists, because he no longer exists. And Chet, who is in New York, who does exist, but they existed as a perfect pair. And I was in this program, and I had been in it for years. I think I went there about 2008. Yeah, 2007 or 2008. And I started doing the trainings, and I started training other people in the trainings. And I was really had a good spiritual space. Then I was practicing Islam. It was like a lot of things going on at once. I was like, give me all the spiritual energy I could get, right? And in the midst of that, I met my husband. And he was actually a practicing Muslim. And we courted and all that you do. And, he was like, we had a very generic conversation, like, yo, I want to get married, I want to have kids. And we had an affinity for each other, and we really enjoy each other's company. So we started dating, and ended up getting married and having 2 children. The issue was he was in the spiritual healing place for the same thing that I was in the spiritual healing place for. He had a lot of abandonment in his family. In his childhood, his mother had him at a very young age and had to leave him because she couldn't, take care of him. And so his great-grandparents actually raised him, and it caused a very deep rift in his heart. And he had a lot of anger towards women, which I didn't find out until we were, living together, having children. And I tried, with that space to maintain it. But it was just very visceral. If you believe in twin flames, he is definitely my twin flame. And your twin flame is the person who is your deepest, darkest mirror. They're not your soulmate. They're the person who reflects to you all your fears, all your trauma, all the deep, dark shit that you don't think you have to face in this life. It comes in this person, and you have to constantly look at them. And while I was trying to do all this healing work on myself, he was just like constantly showing up like abrasive and constantly like, being this thing that I was just trying to get rid of. And it was just like, will you please pray 10 times instead of 5 because you need it. It's crazy in here. But I was like, I need peace. I couldn't survive. I don't think either of us could have survived each other. So that was ended in divorce. But that was the main, let me get back to why I share my healing process, because that's why this is about. Because it's necessary. I've been through a lot. A lot. And what are stories if you don't share them? What is wisdom? It is knowledge of things happening, knowledge of events, understanding of events. I can literally look at people and see the path they're on. It's a very freaky thing. I can literally feel like the loop that a person is in when they're in my space. Peace. Like, around their energy. If they're in a loop of anger, if they're in a loop of loss, if they're in a loop of frustration, if they're in a loop of bringing danger into their lives. And I can feel it because I've been there. I know what those loops feel like. I can always feel when I used to be like very stuck in my lower energy and angry and frustrated. Because I know what that looks like, I can feel it in other people and I can see it in other people. And I can I don't unless people ask, I don't tell them though, because that's not my job, but I can feel it. I know what it looks like to be disgustingly angry with the world. I know what it looks like to be like, God, what the fuck, man? How could this be? I know what it looks like to denounce God. I know what it looks like to hate every living thing on this earth. I know what it looks like to feel like your body is a prison, is a trap. And I don't respond to people because I feel some kind of way. I respond because I want people to know that something you're walking in is disastrously dangerous. It's harmful to the people you're around, not just yourself. Especially a lot of the misogynistic, patriarchal comments that people place on my page, especially about my body. I fought a very long time to be in this body. Before I was 25, I was like, if I used to pray, God, please come get me. I used to pray, wherever I'm supposed to be, like, if this is not my home, come get me. Get me out of here. I don't want to be here. I prayed until I was 25. I would say, please, I don't want to do this. I am sick of this. This is disgusting. I don't want to be here. And I woke up after 25 and I said, you did this for the last 10 years. From 15 to 25, you asked for somebody to relieve you of the burden of life. And you're still here. So it's time you start living. It's time you start being in your body. And that's when I start looking for healing stuff. That's when I start joining retreats and trying different religions and moving through different things, because it was obvious to me that I wasn't going to die. I'd prayed for death. I'd welcomed it. I didn't do anything explicit. I never took pills or slit my wrist or anything like that. But I'd seen people die in a blink of an eye. I'd seen people will themselves to die. I've been on people's deathbeds. I also worked in HIV care, so I saw a lot of young people die HIV, AIDS very early in the 90s. So I knew what death looked like. I wasn't afraid of death. I'd seen it. up front, very close and personal. And to be in that amount of despair and realize that the only thing that was coming for you was you. The only person that's coming to save me was me. That I was my only hope. It was overwhelming as fuck. But I put my one foot in front of the other and I kept trying everything. I tried everything. I've been every religion except for Jehovah's Witness. I've tried everything. I've been Buddhist. I've been everything. I have really tried to make this existence worth living. So when I come on here and I'm sharing what I know, it's not because I'm egotistical or anything like that. It's because I've really fucking tried it. I've really tried my whole entire life to make my life a life worth living. Because after being abducted and being treated the way that I was treated for 8 months, I didn't think that my life was worth living. I thought, if God could let this happen to me, then I must deserve to die. I must not be shit. I must come from nothing. Because what type of fucking existence is this? So I had to literally dig myself out of my own fucking grave while I was alive. Because I was dead. I was moving around. I was walking. I was eating. I was doing all the shit that you do as an alive person. But I was dead. My soul was cracked in a billion pieces. And I had to pick every last one of them up and start over. And it was hard. It was difficult. It was the most difficult thing that I've ever had to do. So, you know, sometimes I'm thinking like, the metal that I've had to build to be who I am. Try the abuse tactics somewhere else. Try the negativity somewhere else. Try the disgusting, disparaging comments somewhere else. Thank you. I love you too. I appreciate love. It's taken me a long time to get to the space where I know my existence is pure love. My existence is pure light. Because I had to do some things to survive that a lot of people wouldn't even fucking do for their children. Wouldn't even do for themselves at 14. And still was able to turn my life into something worth living. Still was able to turn my life into something worth sharing. Thank you. So I want to say this to people who have similar stories to mine, or have trauma, have abuse stories, have stories of devastation, and that you still think are impossible to overcome. You can. You can overcome it. And I'm not saying this from no let's just go. No, I'm saying it from, yes, this shit hurts, it's painful, it's crazy. But you know what my teacher told me, my spiritual teacher told me? And you know, it's like, you know, that he said, you know, the great power comes great responsibility. Great, you know what I mean? Your medicine, my spiritual teacher told me, your medicine was so bitter because your healing is so great. Your medicine was so bitter because your healing is so great. And it was a bitter pill to swallow. It was. Because I literally remember being in that basement crying to God, how could you let this happen to me? How could you allow this to happen to me? But I got out. And there's stories that we'll never hear of young girls who didn't get out, who died in a trash can or died wherever they were kept, buried in the woods, and we don't know they're dead. And only their mothers think of them. That's the only person who knows their name. And we don't address this in our community enough, the amount of trafficking and abuse that happens to our young people. Yes, it is. It's very poignant. We don't address the amount of abuse that happens to our children. And I had neighbors. I had neighbors growing up that watched my mother beat us and neglect us. And I told one of my friends, you know, it wasn't often, but we would go whole weekends without seeing my mother. Be in the house eating spaghetti noodles and raw potatoes and raw hot dogs out the refrigerator because we didn't know how to cook. That's the fucking kind of depths of despair that I had to crawl out of to be the human that I am today. Southeast DC, Washington, D.C. I'm from Washington, D.C. So no, I don't do what I do for attention. Trust me, I've had a lot of attention in my life. It's nothing like having cancer to get you attention. People love to poke and prod you and put you on experimental medicines and shit like that. You get all the attention you want when you get a disease. You don't have to get on the internet to get attention. You don't have to put up pictures of yourself to get attention. There's lots of other ways to get attention. I really do what I do because I know that. Thank you. I know that we get to share our stories. We get to share the way that we're healing. And yoga has brought me so much healing. These last 7 years have changed the game for me. For a long time, I thought this is, this pain, when it was immense, it was huge. It was like it was always in the back of my heart. And I thought that that it would be with me forever. And every day I get on my mat, I could feel a little piece of it drop off, a little piece of it crumble, a little bit of it just, and so I just kept going harder and harder and harder. And that's why I have so many videos, because it's like, the fuck, if this is working, I'm going to do it as much as I can. I'm going to do as much yoga as I can and release all of this shit that I can. And that's what I did. I really just asanaed my way into another space. Oh, yes, I do remember that story. And they made a whole TV show out of that called Kimmy Schmidt. That's what that was based off of. That's really, yeah, and it was supposed to be like comedy. It was really weird. But I do remember that he accidentally walked up on that situation. And that's, I know we talk about that like some Illuminati thing, like everybody's kids are being abducted and pedophiles in the Hollywood and all that. I don't know about all that. But I know it's pedophiles and abductors in our neighborhoods. I know that. I know that for sure. Firsthand. And a lot of other girls do too. And most times you would get labeled, oh, fast, she ran away. I'm going to tell you the one thing you do when you be abducted. Whatever you have to do to survive. Whatever you have to do to survive. Whatever. That's what you do. Thank you. I appreciate you. Do what you have to do to survive. Because you guess what? You're not in power. And the one thing about life is when it's being threatened to be taken away from you, you do start to think about all the shit you won't get to do. I won't get to do this. I won't get to do that. I won't get to be this. I won't get to have that. I won't get to do that. And unfortunately for a lot of young people, they get stuck in that mode. And they get stuck in trafficking. They get stuck. You're right. It was. Yes. And it was. I actually had a young girl. I had a young girl come in my office right before she came in my office to get a pregnancy test. She came with her abductor. This is the type of shit I used to have to deal with. That's why I had to quit that fucking job because it was making me sick. Her abductor brought her to get a pregnancy test. And I had to, tell him he had to leave the office because it was private. And, he was kind of like bucking at me or whatever, but okay, boo. It ain't nothing but a thing. We could go. So he left. He left the office. She disclosed to me that he had abducted her, that she wanted to get out of his control, that she was scared that she was pregnant by him. And, she was a little girl, 15 or 16. And he was 26. She was like, he's been in jail. He's killed people. I don't want to die, so I don't want to be confrontational. So I concocted a story with her that she would go to the 7-Eleven because I didn't have something in my office that I needed. And that, I would test him for STDs while she went to the 7-Eleven. And I called a Uber for her. She told me a safe address that she could go to. And I paid for that Uber and sent that girl and guys to the 7-Eleven. Held that man hostage by giving him a test for STDs in my office while she got the Uber. He left out looking for her. He was like, do you know? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, whatever. That girl came back into my office, real shit, a year later. And she ran through the door. She said, you saved my life. You saved my life. Thank you. I've been home with my parents. I've been going back to school. I've been taking care of I was like, what if I was in this field for all this time just for this one kid? Just for me, just for the one kid that was experiencing the same story that I was experiencing, but didn't have no way to get out. And she looked so happy. She looked so well. She looked so... Because when she came in that year before, it was weird. It was crazy looking. And I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had to ask men to leave the room so that women could tell me that they were being abused, they didn't feel safe in their relationship. Shit was crazy. And most of the times it wasn't women, it was kids. Because that was my population. That's what I specialized in. I specialized in youth. So anyone 13 to 25, I would get the occasional adult that would come in, you know? And that's why I did give up. I changed my whole life around, and it felt honestly like a life of poverty, but I know it was a rich life because I was able to impact a lot of youth in DC through through those jobs, even though I don't feel like the organizations were getting it right. Sometimes you gotta go through a space that you don't agree with in order to get what you want done. And I did that for 20 years. I went through organizations that I felt like survived off of Black pain, profited off of Black pain. But I was there, and I wasn't there to profit off of Black pain. And it was a lot of people like me who worked in those organizations. I have friends to this day because of the, like, it was all of us young Black wanting to change our community, wanting the young people to see examples of not so much older Black people doing the work to fix our community and to help our community. So we did, and a lot of my friends still do that work. Still do it. My friends and I got together and we started a nonprofit, and we still do that work. I just don't have to do it under a header of a white organization. We started our own nonprofit called the Treehouse Enterprises, and we do the same work that we did in these white nonprofit organizations, but we do it on our own terms. We don't do it under the guise of helping the community so that we can get paid. We just do it. We raise the funds, we do the work. If that looks like a story time for youth, if that looks like teaching youth about self-efficacy, whatever it is that we decide that we have to offer, and it's free. And it's in DC. I think right now we are doing story times for I'm pretty sure we're still doing story times for mothers who have kids that are home, just to give them some relief, because that's the biggest issue. All right, baby. That's the biggest issue in our community, is that a lot of mothers and caregivers, let me say caregivers, because sometimes it's grandmothers, don't have time to themselves. And that's why they are harming their children mentally, physically, and emotionally, because they need that time to take care of themselves. If we can give them a 30-minute, hour break where their toddler or their little people are in front of, the Zoom, listening to us read them stories, and they could get some shit done, and they don't have to scream at their kids, sit down, be quiet, don't talk, da-da-da-da-da. I don't think people want to act like that. I think people have learned to function in that way because that's the only thing that has been available to them. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, nonprofits saw the gap in a lot of nonprofits saw the gap in the Black community and saw the money that the government gives out, and they hopped in there. And unfortunately, a lot of us want to do help with our community. That's the only way we can get it done sometimes, is into these harmful nonprofits and do the work from inside those spaces, because they have the money to A, pay us to have a livable life, and B, we get access to the people that we want to get access to, because when you come under this banner head, then people tend to trust you more. It's really interesting, like, even, with this, our organization that we've formed, us just being, regular Black people coming in the neighborhood, there's a lot of barriers. You know what I mean? You have to know the gatekeeper in the neighborhood. You have to know the person who knows everybody in the neighborhood to get into the neighborhood. A lot of neighborhoods in Southeast DC are still very closed. You just can't walk into these neighborhoods. You just can't pull up. No, you better know somebody, or you could get pulled out. That's really what's going to happen. You can't just walk into neighborhoods and some of these spaces. They just not that, They're not interested in you just walking into their neighborhoods. And that is the self gatekeeping is a way to protect themselves on some level. And in some level, it's a way to keep the neighborhood in a state of flux, you know what I mean? Where they don't get to expand. Because there's people in the neighborhood who have the same resources and that we have, but they don't feel comfortable giving them to the neighborhood. Which one? Which one? Point to it. Point to it.
Right there, right there.
Okay, okay. It's me. I'm the one. You perfect. I can't get to it, Marley. Where am I? Okay. There you go. Pizza. That's it? Happy. So yeah, I've been on here for a minute. If y'all want to talk about something, we could switch gears. Because I know this was heavy for a Saturday morning, but I have had a heavy week. Somebody said in what you say? Lil' Kim, you speak quick. Who you come with? Yeah, exactly. Don't get handled in these streets. You know what I'm saying? Like, I tell people all the time, Southeast still with me. It don't leave. Like when you grow up in the hood, you could what you call that? You can code switch. I don't tend to code switch. I didn't even code switch at work. Like I refused, honestly. Like, why would I do that? You hired me because I'm urban. But you can code switch or whatever, but you're gonna need to pull out that bat and that machete or whatever it is you carried in your hood when it's necessary, because people be trying to come up. Right, I'm dead ass. Like, I be all with the spiritual, conversation and the yoga and the healing and all that, but I still fight. I can still fight. I haven't been in a fight in a while, but I can still fight if I have to. I'm not worried about that. Like, still be able to handle myself. I ain't gonna be out here acting like everybody is moving the way that I'm moving. And I think that was the biggest piece of me, that I came up against this week, is that, I realized that I knew it, but just acknowledging, like, sometimes you know things, but you haven't let it settle into your awareness. Like, I just had to acknowledge that there's still so much healing to do across the board for Black men, women, and children. So much healing. We are so hurt. We're so hurt. That's the biggest thing I feel when I engage with some of us. The pain. It's so palpable. Even that's what when I read my comments, the pain, the anger, the frustration. You on here doing this. That's how I feel. And that's what has been hurtful, Right. Just because we spiritual don't mean we won't, like Erica say, don't let this incense and crystals turn into a 45 and some and some Henny, because I can do it. My grandma carried a big machete. She played Mabel. My grandmother's name is Mabel. She did not play. If you come from a line of a woman's named Mabel, you kind of gonna have to know how to go with your hands a little bit. Have to know how to handle yourself. Mabel ain't played, so I ain't come from no punk ass lineage. But my heart requires and desires peace. So I work towards that. I work towards blending those parts of myself that are about it with the parts of myself that are healing. And I think that's what we all get to do. And I think that's, what I was saying was that's what I think really, that sunk in this week how much work we have to do. And oh, sometimes it feels insurmountable. I cannot lie. I cannot lie. And if you're on your path, oh, yeah, Guyana. I know a lot of Guyanese. Yes. Yes, yeah. You gotta, you know, I think that, and I think that people think because you're healing that you're not supposed to be confrontational. You're always supposed to be like, namaste, and all that. No. I am still alive. I'm still human. I did not die. I'm not Jesus. I did not ascend to God like. No, don't. Like they said, try Jesus, don't try me. So much of DC has been gentrified, not like it was in the 90s, but that could be said about many. I'm trying to read what you said. Many of the places that we predominated back in the day. Yes. Spiritual, but don't take no disrespect. Yes. Yeah, DC has been uber gentrified. My mother still lives in DC. She lives in Wingates. If you know DC, Wingates is like, it's off MLK if you want any idea of where it is. And I still have to have my head on a swivel when we go over there. Like, you can't. I just don't drive over there like, just going to see my mom. No, the fuck. I gotta be like, yeah. It's not about being confrontational. It's about having self-respect. People who have self-respect are always labeled as complexional because everybody's so used to yes man and fake people. Yes. Yeah, and it is like when you have boundaries and self-respect, like you said, you're self-aware, people do try to do that little bullshit they do everywhere because they are used to just bulldozing their selves and their ideas into other people's space, and they don't respect any damn thing. But a lot of times what people have been taught is false modesty. I'm not trying to come at you sideways, whatever. But you are. You just said it. I'm not trying to come at you sideways, but you coming at me sideways. Don't. Like, don't not try. Just don't do it. Don't come at me sideways. Like, because that's not the energy I'm bringing to the party. But come on, y'all be wanting people to constantly, and I'm saying people in general, people be wanting people to constantly show up on some woke shit when they showing up on some bullshit. Like, I don't play the abuse games. This is not the fucking abuse Olympics. I don't have time for that shit. Like, see how much I can take. And then, that's why I hate all that shit with people like, I just, the people who don't like you having boundaries are the people who benefit you not having none. You exactly correct. They are. Because there's lots of shit they wouldn't put up with in their space. It's lots of stuff they don't put up with in their space. But they do all types of raggedy shit in people's space. And you know who was the best teacher of that for me? My own mother. She was the best teacher of boundaries for me. Like, I love her. I love her. Like, that's my baby. I love her. But there is a, she got some room. She can't just walk into peace. Talk about healing. She just can't walk up in my shit. She got to call first. She got to make an announcement. She got to let me know weeks ahead. Like, hey, I want to see you guys. This has to be prepared for. You know what I mean? You were my first abuser. And still have some abusive behaviors. I don't expose my children to that type of shit. And I don't expose myself to that either. So we have to be on my time. We have to figure out how this is going to work for me and you to be in the same space together. And I'm very clear. I don't mince words with her. I don't be like, oh, ma, him and haunt. Nah. You know what you did. You know who you been. And it's not about making you feel bad. This is about holding you accountable because you can't do this in my space now that I have children who are vulnerable. A lot of us, don't want to hold people accountable for who they've been until you prove to me, because I am the caregiver. I am the protector of my 3 children. I protect them from me. I protect them from their fathers. And I protect them from you and anybody else out in the world. That's my job. That's my job. That's why I do my healing work, because I protect my children from my trauma, from my fucked up shit that happened to me. And that means that if they came out of me, I carried them for 9 months, had them with no assistance out of my vagina, with no medicine. You think I'm gonna let somebody do something to them? It is a slight form of narcissism. You are correct. It's not, and that's the biggest thing that I be talking to people who've been abused about, because a lot of us, because we have been raised by pseudo narcissists, we have narcissistic tendencies. We have narcissistic tendencies because they were passed on to us by our narcissistic tendency parents. So that's why it's important to do the healing work, because we want to stop that before you have a complete narcissistic, insane situation going on where everybody thinks that everything is about them. And it is, my mom does have a lot of narcissism. Like, everything is about her, like the entire world. And it's very hard dealing with somebody who you can't even share. Like, I could never, like, this thing that happened to me and my mom have never really talked about it. She just said, I'm very sorry that this happened to you. That's it. She don't know the details. She don't know anything that happened to me during that. She would never ask, because she's had her own trauma. And when I talk about my trauma, she says, well, you don't know what happened to me when I was a kid. My brothers tried to rape me, and da-da-da-da, and XYZ. And then I had to hear, then it turns into all the stories about all the shit that happened to her. And what that does is try to make me feel like all the abuse that she had me exist in her care was not as bad. It was, little thing. And you can have your story. But when somebody tells you that you wronged them, that you hurt them, that is not the time to present your story. That's not the time to talk about how you were so abused and so hurt. No, that's the time to listen and to hear how you did a disservice to another person because you didn't handle your healing work. And that's why I do what I do. Because me and my children will not have this conversation when they're 18, 25, 30. They won't have to come back to me and tell me how fucked up a parent I was, because I check myself on the regular. And when I do something out of my trauma, I tell them, hey, this ain't had nothing to do with you. I apologize to them immediately. I tell my children I'm sorry. I tell them all the time, mommy was having a moment. I was having this reaction. You did not do XYZ. I will handle myself better. I apologize. And the most I do is scream. Like, I get, frustrated. I'm like, ah! My children do not like screaming. They cannot handle it because I literally don't do it a lot. Like, it's so, far and few in between. When I do it, it's very damaging to them. Yeah. I've tried to, let me read your comment. I've tried to open up with my mother on a plethora of occasions, and all she wants to do is be oblivious to the facts and then wonder why I have an attitude. Yeah, they're not prepared because they think and I know what they experienced was excruciating. It was horrible. It's terrible. I would never say that the experience wasn't horrible. But you then turned around and exposed me to that same experience. You couldn't stop the train. You let it go off the rails. So does that give you the right to treat your child like you've been mistreated? No, at some point you need to take accountability. Yes. Actually, that's my love language, accountability. That's the only love language I speak. Don't buy me shit. Don't. Tell the truth. Own your shit. That's the only love language I speak. Every other love language is secondary. If you can't be real with me, we have nothing. Nothing. I don't want you in my space. If you, like, I honestly cannot deal. Because if you can't do it, I know you're not doing it with yourself. If you're not doing it with me, I know you're not doing it with yourself. So what are we doing? The type of people that's around me, these are the type of conversations that we have all the time. We constantly, and it is a lot. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, we're eating flower petals and talking about our pain. No, this shit is difficult. But we're invested. We're invested in ourselves enough to do it. We're invested in the world enough to do it. Because every time you heal, that energy vibrates out into the atmosphere. It does. I believe that. I could tell it by the type of home I live in. I've lived in the hood of hoods, praying and fasting 5 times a day and all that. And people would come in my house and be like, I cannot believe your apartment is in this hood. It feel like I'm in a goddamn ashram. Because energy. On so many times, I've had to apologize to my boys because I had to check. Oh, what the heck? I'm trying to read your comments, sis. I've had to apologize to my boys. I had to check myself just like you. Said my anger was not towards them. It was something that was deep down embedded within me that I have yet to overcome. Thank you for being loving and kind enough to yourself and to your children for showing up in that way. Momo, thank you. Thank you. And it is. It's a self-kindness, self-love, being able to call your own self on your own bullshit. Because a lot of people are so invested in the illusion of having it together. The illusion of getting it right. The illusion of perfection. And none of us are any of those things. We are all human. We are striving to be our best, hopefully at each moment. That's it. That's it. So thank you guys. I know this is going to be a lot, but I did it. You know the drill. If you want to try yoga with me, I got yoga videos on my page. If you want to book a session, go to my website. You need jewelry, crystal jewelry, go to my website. If you want to buy a book, go to my website. It'll be in the description. I am a Taurus. All I want is accountability, loyalty, honesty, and trust from everybody. Maybe a lover, family, or friend. No one is different when it comes to myself, respect, and my children. Ashe. 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 I just appreciate y'all for opening up the space for me. Meant to say, Taurus. What you mean, Taurus? Let me see what's up. Oh, I'm a Taurus. Oh, sis. I am not a Taurus, but I am a Cancer, but all of my major planets are in Taurus, so that's probably why we have this in common. My rising is Taurus. My Mars is Taurus. My Venus is Taurus. So, you know, I'm about that steady love. Bonafide, I'm so sorry that you endured a lot of narcissism from your mom. I don't know the details, but I hope that you can eventually make peace with her. Yes, thank you for that, Bonafide. I have made peace with her. My peace is that she has boundaries and restrictions because she is still an addict and she's still working through her process. And when somebody has addiction, you cannot hold them responsible in a certain sort of a way. Their addiction is in charge of their life. And so since I know that, there are boundaries that have to be put in place. I just can't leave my kids over her house or nothing like that. That's just, irresponsible. So, she gets supervised visits with my children when I'm available so she can see her grandkids. And I talk to her once a week just to check in and make sure she don't need anything. She don't need no food. She don't her bills paid, things like that. I think that's the best that I could do. And a lot of people wouldn't do that. with the things that we've endured together. So, you know, I think that if we could all just, you know, be honest about where we are in our processes, you know, and when I was younger, I wasn't even there, you know. She would never see my children when I was younger. She would have never laid eyeballs on them. And also she was very different too. She hadn't calmed down as much. Now, you know, I can count on, you know, she's gonna be where she's at. She's in the house smoking weed or drinking, or maybe doing her, what you call that, her boat, or she at church. Or with her sister. That's you know, that's, yeah, you know, when you know your addict, you gotta know your addict. You gotta know, so you can, that's the other part of being a child of abuse and neglect. You learn your abuser. You learn what makes you safe. I'm sorry, she said, I wish there was something I could do to help her health, both physically and mentally. Honestly, I think that this is the best that it gets. She's had so much trauma. I think that this is the best that it gets. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. She has a routine. And I'm okay with that. Macedonian. Ooh. Can't. What? I gotta look that up. But yeah, so y'all have a good Saturday. I'm gonna put up some yoga for y'all. I haven't neglected my practice. I just haven't shared it over here as much, just pictures, but I'll put up a video or something today. I have a lot of videos. I love yoga. Yoga just, I really do. But y'all have a good day, and take care of yourselves and do what you need to do to heal. You know, you don't have to do it the way I do. You don't have to get on YouTube or Instagram and all that. Take pictures, but document it, your process in your own way. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's with a friend. Maybe it's therapy. Whatever it is, I hope you find peace in it, and I hope you get the relief you need so that your life can be transformed and the lives around you can be transformed. Because that's essentially, I don't think everybody is here for that. I don't think everybody here for healing. But those of us who are here for healing, that's essentially what our deal is. And I want that for you. Talk to y'all later. Hope y'all have a good one. Peace.